When you look at how we are sleepwalking into authoritarianism and how tech can free us or enslave us, we're going down the wrong path. It's really difficult when people say we just move. Well, I can't. I've got 2 kids that are at secondary school and they quite like where they live. You can't just up and leave. And then the question is, where do you go? Because is there anywhere? Is there a solution? No, this is cyclical. It's pre-planned. We're going to head into choppy waters, potentially war. I think that it could lead to collapse, and I think it's all predictable.
This episode of the Free Cities podcast is brought to you by Veritas Villages. Now, Veritas Villages are freedom-oriented, energy self-sufficient luxury communities designed for people who want to enjoy peace of mind and real freedom in today's unpredictable world. Join a community of like-minded neighbours who value privacy and independence in a place where you can use Bitcoin, including for the purchase of your property. www.veritasvillages.com/free cities for more info, and in the meantime, enjoy the conversation. So do I call you Susie?
Susie. But it's Susie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
And the Violet bit, is that your middle name or is that a double-barreled?
No, it's my middle name. Yeah, I was trying to distinguish. Well, there is a reason why I use it's a bit of I don't know if it's a boring story. My dad's mum's name was Violet.
Okay.
And so they gave me that as a middle name, and he always used to say to me, I'm really sorry, I know you hate your middle name. And I was like, no, I don't, Dad. Anyway, Dad died like 10 years ago before my Bitcoin journey. And so I have it there as a tribute because I knew that he would be a Bitcoiner. And so therefore it's my little tribute to Dad to say I don't hate it. It's stupid, I know, but like we all do these little things, don't we, I guess.
At least your name isn't Tim Allen, which is, do you remember Tall Time Tim? Well, do you know who that is?
No.
Oh, God. He's he's a very famous actor. He used to do this program called Tall Time in America. And
I recognise the name Tim Allen. I didn't know that was...
Well, I changed mine back to Timothy to distinguish myself from that, because I used to be a journalist in London, and when in the early days of the internet, if you Googled Tim Allen, I didn't stand a chance. So I thought, maybe if I make it Timothy, and it kind of worked, you know. I did distinguish myself. And then one Christmas, Tim Allen did a Christmas movie, and it was called Christmas with Tim Allen. And you know, sometimes on the tube they do blanket campaigns literally for something, and everywhere you look it's Tim Allen says Happy Christmas, and everyone was just sending it to me, and it was quite funny the first time, but then obviously after a while it got a bit boring. Anyway,
Timothy's a lovely name.
I know, but it's funny you should say that. I agree, but Tim's more friendly than Timothy.
Tim, nice.
And if
Tim.
you stick to Timothy, then there's this kind of politeness that happens. So that means when someone goes straight to Tim, it's quite a sort of, it's an aggressive move. If you're known as your full name and they go straight for Tim, it's kind of like, hold a minute, you know.
I haven't given you permission.
It's almost a bit like that.
Yeah.
Because Tim's the kind of slangy version of it. It'd be like if you were a school teacher and you were Miss Ward.
Yeah.
And someone came in and said, "Hey, Susie, and you'd be
right,
like, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
It's teacher-student relationship and all that.
Yeah.
Right, anyway. So I was thinking about a few things to talk about, and I thought I just went through all your old tweets of the last sort of, I don't know, probably it was about 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, because it's a good when journalists are big tweeters. And you are a pretty big tweeter. You're not the biggest tweeters, but you do tweet enough. You can see what you've been doing. It's a good timeline. And I find this time we're living in at the moment is like bittersweet, because on one hand, I'm super excited about what's going on. But on the other hand, when you go through the kind of things you're reporting on, I mean, it's super depressing as well. It's really getting kind of serious, I suppose. And it is really bittersweet, because the Bitcoin thing is always exciting. And in one sense, it go better and better and better. But as a technology, when you look at what else is happening in the tech sphere, it's super... the authoritarians love it. And I mean, I was just looking through what you were tweeting about Tornado Cash, what's been going on. The UK's Online Safety Act, Labour silencing critics, mass surveillance, even talking about VPN restrictions now, obviously, because of the online safety bill. It's a stupid idea, because if you know, even my youngest kid knows how to get around that kind of stuff, you know. And when you look at it like that, there are certain things like VPN restrictions, for example, are a bit of a massive red flag for me, because the only time I've ever known that previously was out in China, where they have various firewalls. And so when things like that start happening, I start getting a little bit concerned, and you're obviously concerned. So, like, what's going on? What's it all about? Why is all this stuff seem to be happening all at once? It does seem to be happening all at once, right?
I think it's been creeping in, and I think for a long time we have been at this crossroads where we will go down the freedom route or we'll go down the authoritarian route. And so I think it's the Human Rights Foundation put out a percentage that 72% of the world are under some sort of authoritarian regime. And that includes countries like India that are technically democracies, but obviously in reality are not. And I think that when you look at how we are sleepwalking into authoritarianism and how tech can free us or enslave us, we're going down the wrong path at the moment. That doesn't mean that we can't correct, but it means that we have to be aware of what's happening. And the biggest concern that I have is that so many people don't see it because it's insidious and it's slow and it creeps in. And also there's this narrative. I mean, obviously, being Bitcoiners, we're quite keen on the idea of privacy, and privacy has almost become a dirty word, but privacy is very normal, and we shouldn't lose it just because we have all of this tech. And we have a lot of legislation that's coming in, the FATF travel rule, which is...
What's that one? FATF travel rule? I don't think I've heard of that one. Is that about...
They want to collect KYC data on everybody, and it basically travels with the transaction. So it's a really... They're collecting so much data that isn't even needed. And the reason why that is such a crazy idea is because they actually implemented it in TradFi 10 years ago. So it was the G7 countries, they're completely unelected, coming together, putting together some legislation, put it together in TradFi. It didn't stop money laundering. I mean, the World Bank, I believe it's the World Bank, has been saying for about 20 years that 3 to 5% of global GDP can be attributed to illicit activities and money laundering. So they haven't even stopped it in TradFi. So if it's proven not to work, why are they now implementing it in, I hate to say the C word, but crypto?
I mean, when you look at all those things there, and when you said 77% of people live under authoritarian regimes,
72%, I think it might
Sorry.
be. Yeah. But that probably changes all the time, to be fair.
It was a bit like the CPI. It's what they say there is, and what actually there is.
Right, because the UK is probably not included in
Well, yeah, and I'm gonna go there. I think there are, like, I travelled 20 years ago to a lot of, when I was a journalist, I went to war zones and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And 20 or 25 years ago, I used to look at things and go, blimey, that's pretty full on. That's full on. They're stopping people from doing this. They're stopping people from doing that. Blah, blah. I travelled a bit in China and sort of like, and I now look at these kind of things that are going on and say, yes, they are happening here now. They're definitely happening here. They're like the fact that the online safety bill in the UK now, which is quite obviously a gateway drug to complete KYC on the internet.
And have you noticed the way that they sell all of these awful...
It's for the kids' safety normally, isn't it? Right.
Always.
Well, I've got 3 kids, and I did a big ranting introduction to my last episode of this, saying, look, if you think the government give a shit about your kids, don't be retarded. Of course they don't. And if you're worried about your kids looking at porn on the internet, that's your responsibility. It's nothing to do with the government,
right.
And you either bring up cool kids who understand all that stuff and who don't mind that and aren't going to be interested in it, or you block them yourself.
Or you don't give them the tech in the first place. And that's something that, well, I used to write an opinion, I had a column called My Two Sats, and I used to write opinion pieces. So I would talk about how broken the world was and how Bitcoin could potentially fix it. And I wrote about the online safety bill that was coming about 2 years ago. And part of that article, I said, maybe the problem is we're normalizing giving this highly addictive, very dangerous technology to young children. You can see it. You walk around. Somehow they've even got like little clips around their neck where they can have the iPad constantly, like a necklace. I went on holiday last week and we were going around a water park, and I thought, oh, brilliant. There's somewhere where it's going to be phone free. No, they've just invented a way that you can carry your phone with you in a waterproof carrier. And it's unbelievable. You've got children walking around a water park with their phones around their neck, like their parents actually think that's an important thing for them to have with them. Why?
It's obvious that one is a pacifier, and, I don't know. I find it equally disturbing, but I also feel for people who do it because it makes their life a lot easier.
Because we're time poor, because money is broken, because we don't have the time or the energy to police it in the way that it should be, because everybody's stressed out. There's no judgment necessarily. I mean, I do think it shouldn't happen, but...
I know what you mean, though. Yeah, that one. I mean, we've done it our way. I've got 3 young kids, and they're very good in that sense. But that was only because we were hard about it, and it was tough love. Let's say my daughter was the last person in her class to get a phone.
What year was that?
Age 12, which is still young, right?
Yeah.
She's got graphene phone. She's got a hacked Google phone with graphene on it. She knows about all this stuff. She was the first person that came to me and said, "Oh, Dad, look, when I go on Venice.ai, which is the AI we use, which is a privacy AI, doesn't leak your data, doesn't, she said, is asking me, even that came under the umbrella of the online safety bill. She said, this is, this asking me for my date of birth and stuff. And obviously, I just said, we'll switch the VPN to another country then, because we leave it on UK. We use a VPN for privacy reasons. Therefore, we just leave it on the UK all the time, because it's annoying if you go to Amazon and it says Finnish, Dutch, like Norwegian kroner or something. Right. But now it's like, oh God, here we go. This is now a thing. So every time my VPN's on, and I know I'm using it to skirt these kind of things, that's serious now, because now it's probably a criminal offence, is it? I don't even know if it's a criminal offence or...
I don't think so yet.
But presumably, if they're telling companies to police their websites, which is what they're saying. So if you're of a certain type of website, mainly porn sites, but like I say, Venice is ChatGPT, is a private version of ChatGPT, so it's not a porn site in the slightest. But they're being told to police it. I mean, they're very sarcastic about it. They say, look, you guys, you've got to enter your details here. And they've made a whole page about why it's ridiculous and stuff. But I know, but that still doesn't stop you coming up against the problem of it.
Yeah.
So who's in the wrong there? Do you happen to know? Is it if you choose to skirt use a VPN, which is, I think, vast numbers of people must do it now. I found it in China. A lot of people used to do that back then when I was there. Who's the criminal in that situation? The people who have the website or the people using the VPN?
I don't think people using VPNs are being criminalised yet. I think it will happen. I think they will eventually clamp down on it. I mean, obviously, it's a very obvious workaround now, but I think that slowly they will start closing in. But what I don't understand about this, what blows my mind, is that when did they stop just going after the criminal? It's the whole tornado cash thing, you know. Why, if somebody is doing something wrong, go after the person doing the thing that's wrong. Don't collect every innocent person's data. Don't stop them from using tools just because you can't catch the people that are actually doing the bad thing. Like, for me, it's a nonsense.
I think, I mean, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist much. I do every now and then. I dip my toes in, but it seems to me that it might be a combination of complete incompetence in government. People that nobody likes or respects in positions of power thinking this is a good idea.
Yes.
Right. But I also do think there are people that let it happen who know exactly what's going on.
And that muddies the waters and it makes it very difficult to know what's going on. But when I did actually write about the online safety bill when it was coming 2 years ago, in my column, I highlighted one of the people that was working on the bill, as somebody from the House of Lords. And when I looked into his background, he was just a diversity officer in his previous life. He had no tech experience. He was blind and he would go on stage with a guide dog and talk about CBDCs and the online safety bill and digital IDs. And it was like, because he was blind, he gave it the diversity tick. It felt deliberate. And when you looked at his background, there was nothing to suggest that he was in any position to be creating legislation like that.
That does appear to be the timeline that we're going through at the moment. I think we've reached this point in the sort of the democratic cycle where it's so broken now, the system of the democratic system, that the incentives now mean that the worst people go for those jobs. Anyone who is any good at what they do doesn't want to work at the government. No. They want to work in the private sector. They want to do it properly. They want to do it well. They want to do it free. Anyone who can't compete in the private sector goes into the governmental sector and then looks back at everyone else because they suddenly realize, wow, I've got my finger on the button here. Now everyone has to come to me and ask permission to do everything, which is what, you know, it's so frustrating when you see that situation arise where you've got entrepreneurs on one side and regulators on the other. Mm-hmm. And the entrepreneur... And
regulators regulating regulators. So, like, then quangos of regulators, so nobody's got any accountability. And so there's layers upon layers. So no one can be held accountable.
You're right. And they rarely, probably it's a sweeping generalization, but they rarely lose their jobs over stuff. Yeah. And if you do, you tend to move to another department or move sideways. You know, like you often hear of people doing. I mean, I don't know. It's the only word for it's an absolute shit show. Mm-hmm. If you look at anyone who comments on this stuff regularly, and you go and you look at their timeline on Twitter or wherever it is they're posting Nostra or whatever, it's just shit, constantly just incompetent people saying ridiculous things in positions of power.
Do you know what makes it even worse, though?
Well, a lot.
This is the thing for me. I think those people actually think they're doing the right thing.
Well, you wouldn't do it on purpose. I mean, I know everyone's got their their own history. We've all got our quirks, and we've all got our sort of stuff from the past that makes us do this, that, and the other. But I really do think that the system is incentivizing these people to seek out these positions, because it's a safe place if you're that kind of a person, because you get paid whatever. I mean, the pandemic was a perfect example. Who did all right during the pandemic? People that worked in government.
Yeah.
They didn't lose their jobs. They went and worked from home. They weren't exactly...
Had parties.
Yeah. Beside that, I just mean your average person working in a council or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
They're not really incentivized to run their shop like a business and make money and do well. It's very rare to see a local council, or I'm thinking that because that's what I have most contact with, doing well. And they're mostly bankrupt at the moment, mostly seem to be slowly fleecing everyone more and more and more. Someone was
Do you have to pay for your brown bin as an extra add-on?
No, I was just about to mention that. We don't even have one. Check this out. So I live right in the middle of nowhere in the countryside, fair enough. But at one point, our bins were collected once every 3 weeks.
Wow.
And when you live in the countryside, if you put stuff in a bin, all kinds of wildlife takes an interest in it, and you'd often get up in the morning because it's been there for so long, and you find it all out on the floor. But yeah, I heard we don't have a brown bin. That's for the garden waste, right? Yeah, we don't even have that. Yeah, I saw someone complaining about that the other day. It's like they got a letter from the council to say it's going to now cost you to have your brown bin taken away.
Yeah. And it's the admin involved in actually doing it. So you have to have a call centre for people that can't do it, the infrastructure for the website to take the money. You've got to tell people that it's happening, send out the stickers that they can put on their bin, and you think, well, how much money are you actually making out of this? I mean, they must be, I hope, have done some sort of benefit cost analysis. You would hope that they had.
I don't think so, but this is where the incompetence comes. I think the thought process was, let's charge everyone for one of the bins, because that's going to generate us money. And everyone went, yay, and then 6 months later, they realised it's costing them more. This is the same thing with the millionaires leaving the UK. What is it? 16,500 millionaires expected to leave this year. Mm-hmm. They're down on the revenue, on tax revenue, by basically saying we're going to tax the rich.
Yep.
I mean, once again,
they don't understand the left curve, do they?
Great idea. Let's tax the rich. Reality, you make less money. Not, I don't know. We probably shouldn't just rant continuously. But the reason why I find it disturbing is because it's funny to sort of go on about this, but it's actually it's very serious. Like I say, when you look at online safety bill, when you look at the general clampdown on everything, and KYC is at the heart of it all.
Yes.
So digital ID, which we know is coming in. What I want to know is, from someone who you're probably a lot deeper into it than me, what do you do as a person because when I look around our community, I think, everyone's on it, everyone's doing all kinds of stuff, there's this, that and the other. But really, it doesn't matter. It's a bit like privacy only exists if everyone does it. If you do it on your own.
Edward Snowden said that. He actually said that, and it really stayed with me. At Bitcoin 2023, he had a keynote speech. He said, you shouldn't be contorting yourself through a keyhole of hell using coin joins and mixes. He says, I'm proud of you guys. You're finding a workaround. That's great. But unless privacy exists for everybody, it's pointless.
So how do we do that? Because when you look at the trajectory we're on, and the obvious one is digital ID. We've seen all kinds of versions of it. We're now seeing online digital, all this stuff which has been predicted since, I remember first hearing about it in the 80s, people talking about one world government and, monitoring everything and this, that and the other. And fortunately, Bitcoin arrived, which gave a lot of hope, certainly to me, and I know a lot of other people. But even with that now, when you look at what kind of a world are you going to be navigating, and is it going to be good enough? Are you going to be able to navigate that world and still stick to the principles that you believe in and privacy?
Possibly not.
But what does that mean then? I mean, my answer would be currently, and that will probably change, would be some form of geo arbitrage. So move somewhere where they do leave you alone.
But where? And also, if you want to interact with the financial system, if you want to touch the current financial system in any way, shape or form, you've got to KYC in some way. Otherwise, so for example, perfect solution, you've got a little bit of Bitcoin sitting in self-custody, it's safe, no one can take it, you've got it. But you need to buy a car and you need to get it in to the normal way. You know, there'll be some sort of KYC, you know, when it reaches your bank account, where did you get this money from? You know, so it is, if you want to interact with the financial system and do normal day-to-day things, there'll be a way that they catch you.
Interestingly, I had a great conversation about this exact thing it was a couple of months ago with Ben. He's a pseudonym, Ben Gunn, and he framed it really interestingly because I never thought about it like this before. The part of the market that isn't taxed, which is either very small transactions or very, very, very large transactions, is the place where Bitcoin works. So people sending $100 billion, not a problem. People buying a T-shirt for sats, not a problem. No one's taxing that. You know, it's that bit in the middle, like you say, cars, houses, large items that are a bit of a problem, because unless you're buying something straight off another Bitcoiner or someone who wants to receive sats for their car, which is easy to do, you're right. Your money will then suddenly be of interest to the government. And in that sense, it would be, they may come a time when they decide to confiscate a 6102. They'll know it's there. They will want to take some of it in all kinds of taxes, even though it's money, you know. And yeah, I do think about this a lot, because I know a lot of people who at the moment live in a parallel system, which is fine. You know, a lot, you know, you can live in a completely parallel system. It's not a problem. But more and more and more, the rest of the world is being taken over by this other system, or the one that we're coming from. And it won't be much fun if you're just stuck in a very small group of people and there's not a lot you can do, which seems, you know, one of the other things that could potentially happen, I suppose, is somewhere like the US has, you know, such great legislation and such a great attitude towards Bitcoin in the financial sense that it paves the way for the rest of the world, right? And arguably there's a possibility of that. I think that now, looking a few months down the line since the last election, so-called elected, you know, Trump was very pro-Bitcoin. He seems to still be quite pro-Bitcoin, but
he has released his own shitcoin.
Yeah, of course, we know that. But I mean, just in general, I saw something today or yesterday about banks. They passed a bill so that banks can't debank you if you have.
Is that it's the Genius Act? Is it?
I don't know.
They've done 3 bills recently. I think they've done a CBDC bill, stablecoin bill, and the Genius Act. I think that but the CBDC bill it has really confused me, because they're still very pro stablecoins, and stablecoins, in my opinion, are just CBDCs via the back door. So even though they've got this bill to say no, you know, CBDCs are a violation of our constitution, we will not have them. They've just got another workaround in place, and that seems to be the case across the board. Do
you know what, though? You know Efrat, don't you?
Yes.
She interviewed a couple of, I think it was yesterday, it was, what's his name, from the guy with the podcast, the financial podcast, you know, very famous, oh my God, I can't remember. Anyway.
What country is he from?
He's American. I'm just having a bit of brain fog at the end of the day, but he he's very well known. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Very well.
That happens to me all the time.
Right.
All the time.
But he had what I would call a pretty unpopular opinion about CBDCs, but I did find it interesting that they are necessary in order to create liquidity to move onto a Bitcoin standard. And it makes sense.
I think stable coins will drive Bitcoin adoption.
But then if a stable coin is a backdoor CBDC, does it even matter? Because once Bitcoin is, once the liquidity, like mass liquidity from the world has kind of moved into Bitcoin, presumably people would choose the Bitcoin. They won't choose the CBDC necessarily because it won't preserve their purchasing power for starters. I don't know. I'm every time there's another thing to go. Oh my God! I'm always looking for the right. Is that really true, or is there a possibility that there is a silver lining on this cloud? Could it be XYZ? And Preston Pish was the guy. Sorry.
Oh, Preston! I was just he was just on my panel.
Right. Sorry, Preston was the one. Very kind of financial brain.
Yes.
But no, he was the one that mentioned it. So you think that CBDCs are coming via
stable coins?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that in the UK we've actually said that they're not going to pursue a CBDC. That was obviously going to happen because it goes back to when you were saying at the beginning, the right people to implement these things won't do that job. No one who understands the tech or what's going to happen or would be good enough to implement a CBDC would work on a project like that. So you just wouldn't get the right people to do it. But it has left the door wide open for stable coins.
But in order for a stablecoin to sort of take on the characteristics of a CBDC, that's quite a lot of change in the tech, right? Because at the moment, stablecoins are used as dollars, really.
But you can still stop them. You can still KYC them. The whole when they talk about debanking, if you're using the rails, and a lot of stablecoins now will pop up. All the different banks, they'll have their own stable coins, and it's still something that can be censored, stopped, tracked.
But presumably, I mean, none of them are decentralized. So at the end of the day, they have a company that runs them. So, yeah. They're never a good idea. But in the financial system we live in, maybe they are a bridge to. Because in a way, if they are a bridge to a new financial system which is basically backed with Bitcoin and Bitcoin used on day-to-day transactions, you could argue that would be a very smooth transition compared to the alternative, which is normally a war or complete collapse of the financial system or some huge event that caused massive inflation or whatever. So it could. I
think that will happen. I think that will happen regardless of stable coins.
But what, inflation?
Because stable coins is just a different version of fiat.
Correct, but in a way,
no, it is fiat. Sorry, on different rails.
Yeah, the thing about the dollar though is because there's so much demand for it. It's it's the hardest of all of fiat currencies to hyperinflate and stable coins add more
pop.
Yes, but and stable coins add more liquidity in a way, so they add more demand for it, which is good because then it keeps the inflation at bay, presumably. Not that I'm a fan of them at all, but you can understand the meme that is spend your dollars, save in your Bitcoin.
Yes, but so the way that stable coins are backed is US debt. So 85% of I think it's Tether, 85% is backed by US debt.
Treasuries.
Right. So what they do is the money from the countries that are desperate and use it as a lifeline then are feeding back to keep the US hegemony alive, which then exports their inflation to these countries, and then people justify it by saying it's a lifeline, and then they use that lifeline and it goes back, and it just becomes quite an ugly cycle. Which is actually,
once again, I think the US is quite desperate for people to buy their treasuries. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why they quite like stablecoins as well. Of course.
How much do you think they've allowed Tether to exist?
Yeah, but don't you think that Tether usage aids Bitcoin adoption?
Yes, I do.
So do they not know that? Because Bitcoin defunds the government pretty much. So does it matter to them, or are they not thinking about it in those terms? Or because that would seem like that would be quite an ironic turn that this would happen, that no one's buying US treasuries, so they have to create this liquidity, so they push stable coins on the world, and because stable coins are the way that you interact with Bitcoin from the dollar, then Bitcoin becomes much more widely used, and that defunds the government. So
yes, unless you have a plan to centralize Bitcoin. I mean, it is becoming more institutionalized, and I have concerns around centralization risks. I mean, we talk all the time about how Bitcoin is a decentralized currency, and yes, it is. But when you look at the centralization of mining, you look at the centralization of mining pools, 40% of the current hash rate is in the US. OFAC transactions have been censored hypothetically. Marathon have proven that you can censor OFAC transactions. If the US got over 51% of the hash rate, it would make censorship more possible. So with all the Bitcoin that's now being bought, most of it is being bought through ETFs and treasuries. So you could argue that although it's feeding Bitcoin, maybe, I don't know, they've seen that it can't be stopped, so they're just finding ways to capture it.
Or like you said earlier, the KYC rails will be so inhibitive that by default you can't even spend your Bitcoin unless you swap it directly with someone else, which is the point of it. And the optimist in me goes, great. It's just going to take a long time before we're all on a Bitcoin standard, because we will be forced to do that in the same way that people are being forced to use VPNs now, for example, or they're being forced to do whatever, leave the country or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's like I say, as I said right at the start, I feel like at the moment I'm ecstatic and I'm really depressed at the same time about about what's going on.
I feel the same thing, exactly the same.
But is that when I think about it, I think that's because technology is neutral, and all you're doing is looking at the people that are using it for freedom and the people that are using it for authoritarian, and they're both doing it at the same time. And I mean, I would argue that we've got the better team because it's decentralized and people are more passionate about it, I think. But nevertheless, I'm not sure where to position myself sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
I mean, are you you're not a nomad? You have a fixed abode, do you?
I've got a family.
Yeah.
So
me too, yeah.
It's really difficult when people say we just move. Well, I can't. I've got 2 kids that are at secondary school and they quite like where they live. You can't just up and leave. And then the question is, where do you go? Because is there anywhere that has the perfect setup? I haven't found anywhere yet.
Yeah, the perfect setup, no, but there are places that are working better than us, I think it's fair to see.
Where would you go?
I would have 2 strategies. Currently, I'm in the same position as you. I've got at least another 10 years where I have to stand still because my kids love it where we live. I don't want to disrupt their life. They don't need to know about any of this stuff. They just need to know they're sorted. I'm looking out for them and steering them in the right direction. But when they're free, and we've already talked about it, that me and the missus, that there's much better places to position ourselves.
Where?
it would either be one of two. One route would be the kind of Switzerland type route,
right,
which would be you go and hang out with all the rich people, basically. The other route is you go to the other end of the spectrum. You go to the places that haven't quite created a system there, Paraguay, Mexico, those kind of things. Or we get lucky in the next 10 years and there is some kind of a political renaissance. Unfortunately, that doesn't look too good. I mean, look at the UK is a good example at the moment. We're obviously going to get a regime change at the next election if what's happening now is anything to go by. And it will be as exciting as probably when Trump got in. But I don't think it will have any longevity because I think the same thing happened with Trump. Trump getting in was like, oh my God, this is amazing for so many people who didn't like the former regime. But when you actually get into power, and it would be the same in the UK, I think, if one of the reform type parties or all these new kind of like freedom-y oriented parties get in, they'll just hit the kind of immovable object of the system.
The blob.
Yes, the blob. And the blob requires that you print money and you sell treasuries and you do all this stuff.
Do you think that's why Rachel Reeves had a breakdown? Because she looked at everything. She's like, I can't actually do anything.
Yeah, but does Rachel Reeves even know anything about the financial industry?
Do any of them?
I don't think at the moment, no. I think this is what I was saying earlier. I think our whole government at the moment is a complete shit show. It's an embarrassment. It's full of people who you never associate with in real life. These are literally the kind of social outcasts and the worst kind of people. But I think with the new, there's going to be a turnaround at the next election. There's going to be a lot of business people coming into positions of power again, I think. But they're still going to come up against the same problem. And the problem is because Trump did it. Trump was really vocal about a number of things. And do you remember all that Doge stuff? It's like, oh my God, they're really going to make the government smaller. And they didn't. They made it bigger because they can't make it smaller. This is the answer to all these problems. The answer is smaller government.
Yep. And how do you get there? Separate money and state. Yeah,
but that's the long-term strategy.
I see what you're saying.
Short term, you need to sack a load of people and if you were a business and you went into the government as a business, you just sack most people.
Yes.
Because they're just eating up resources.
Isn't that what Elon did when he took over Twitter?
Apparently, yeah. You never know what's true.
No, very true.
I know he sacked a lot of people, but the government, the problem with the government is it doesn't make money other than from you and me and everyone else, and trying to convince people to lend it money. It's like the worst relationship. It's either lend us some money, buy some of these, I've got some treasuries, buy some of these, or it just comes up to you at gunpoint and says, give me some money. Yeah. It's like, it's a really abusive relationship. I don't think many people ever think of it like that.
No.
There's this very commonly held belief that nothing functions without the government. And the truth is we're at a period in history, I'm pretty sure this is the biggest governments have ever been. I think the US government is the biggest government in history, like when you do it by the number of people that actually work there.
Very depressing.
Well, but at least the problem's quite simple. It appears. There's an institution, there's a body which is soaking up, is making bad decisions and causing normal people, certainly middle class people, to give up doing things that the government really wants them to do, like start businesses, be productive, join in with them. It's just sending them out overseas. I don't know many people starting businesses at the moment. I don't know many people feel...
You can't. They're leaving the UK.
Exactly. And but they're going somewhere.
Yes. America, I think, is one of the top places that they're going, and the UAE. Yeah.
The UAE, almost taxless.
But I wouldn't move there, would you?
Well, it depends. Because
it's not really a place for freedom lovers, is it?
No, but it depends what you want, because it's an interesting place in as much as there's no political sphere there. what I find interesting about Dubai is it sort of smashes a lot of the myths that we have about things like, for example, Dubai is 10% local people. So 10% Emiratis, 90% immigrants. So that whole idea about the immigrants are taking from us, you can see that that's not necessarily true. Obviously, they don't have a social care system in the same way. You don't go to Dubai you go to make money. Yeah. You're a trader. You go to Dubai to make money. You don't go there to vote either. You don't care who's running the place. You care whether your business is making money. And so in these terms, it's actually an interesting place.
They live under a two-tier system, really, because you do have, like you said, the 10%, the Arabs are they treat people differently, and then you've got the other 90% and they have different services. It's almost like an apartheid almost. And men and women are very much kept separately. And it was built on slavery. When you actually look at the way that it was built, I remember going back there in 2005, and I think this has really stayed with me, which is why I don't think I could ever consider living there, is because I saw the people that were working on those buildings and I saw how they were treated, and everything about it makes me feel really sad. Arguably, though, there's no place in the world that you could say is crystal clear, is perfect. No, has a history. And also, I used to work a lot in the UAE. I used to go a couple of times a year. And for start, I mean, all the Emirates are slightly different. They're different personalities. And I didn't find that women were necessarily oppressed in many. I used to work in Sharjah, which is the Emirate next to Dubai. And I agree that there is a difference between the Emiratis and everyone else. And that's that's on purpose. Mm-hmm. The emirs look after their own first and foremost, which is something that you would say in the UK. A lot of people are saying, why don't you look after the British people first? It's a very grey area, that whole thing. The term British people is a bit loose. I'd say if you were going to separate it out, I'd say taxpayers, maybe, because my grandparent, I'm second generation immigrant. My grandfather came over from Poland and my grandmother came over from Italy, and they came over to do the rubbish jobs that the English people didn't want to do. So they worked in factories and actually went to Bedford, which now has and that was where I was born. It's now really bizarre that it has a Bitcoin connection. Really? You were born in Bedford? I was, yeah. Let's talk about that afterwards, because it's really fascinating what's going on there. Anyway, come on. So my nonno came over and worked in the brick factories in Bedford, and they were very proud, and they did all those awful jobs that English people didn't want to do. They had a house, they went on holiday once a year, they had a car, they had everything that they needed, and the system was working for them. They were unskilled workers, but they still had a home, their pride, and everything that they needed. That was before money was really, truly broken. But I don't think London would run without immigration. It's a very, very important part of our history and our economy, and it's really important that I don't like segregation. I don't like separating people out. I don't like putting people in order of you're more important or you're not. And so that's why I don't think I could ever really get on board with the two-tier system that they have in Dubai. But immigration is vital for our country, and I think we need to change our mindset and actually treat them well, because they're people that are not only providing a service, but they're actually paying tax into our system, and quite often they don't take out what they put in. I think, though, isn't the grey area at the moment who is actually taking and who is putting into the system? I think if you look at the general meme in the country, yes, people, rightly or wrongly, are super angry because they think people are coming in, and just taking. And there are people doing that, and there are people who aren't doing that and who are actually coming here. I think probably
I wouldn't choose to be an immigrant to the UK currently. It's not the greatest place to. There's lots of better places to go to, but I suppose that's what the problem is. People, rightly or wrongly, and I don't know if it's true, what the relationship is between the number of people that come here and take and the number of people that come here and add to the system, or here, but you know what I mean, in the UK.
Yeah, well, I don't know those numbers either, but I do think there's an awful lot of people here that don't contribute to the system that are native to the country, and in a funny way I don't even think that's their fault, and I think that comes back to broken money, because we know that we came off the gold standard in 1971, and since then the gap between earning wages and the cost of living has grown. The gap has got bigger. So before, when you could live on one salary, now you need two. And then in the future, you'll probably need three to be able to have the same lifestyle that you had before. If working paid, if an unskilled person could go to work, earn a salary, have a house and everything that they needed, I don't think they'd be sitting at home on benefits. I think it's definitely a broken system that is forcing them down that road.
You're right. Do you know what's going to be next after two salaries? I think it's going to be two salaries and U.B.I.
Oh my goodness!
Because
but they go. But U.B.I. You say that, but that's kind of what's happening. One thing, when the penny dropped of what was actually happening with tax credits, you get full-time working people having to go cap in hand to the government asking for extra money. A full-time working person, I don't care if they're unskilled. You know, they're providing a service. It doesn't matter. Like, we shouldn't, that's another thing that we shouldn't be doing, is like prioritizing, oh, you're a professional, oh, you're better. Oh, you know, you just, I don't know, work in a factory, therefore you're less than. That's just utterly ridiculous. All work should pay, and regardless of the job and regardless of the skill level. And also, I don't really think that, say, investment bankers that earn a lot of money, they're not exactly contributing to society, are they? They're not adding anything of value. They're the extractors, really, when you actually think about it.
Yeah, I think the way that, mostly at least, the way that wages work themselves out is based on a spreadsheet of how much do you make compared to how much do you make for the company and how much XYZ. I don't know how it works with people that flip burgers at McDonald's or whatever. I think that's just minimum wage. But even that, all that stuff, it doesn't solve the problem. Putting up people's wages doesn't solve the problem. We know that.
Because money's broken.
Yeah, it just puts the price of everything else up. If you put up the minimum wage to 30 quid an hour, it won't last long before the price of a Twix doubles and your 30 quid gets half as much. You know, that's the kind of system we live in. And I think most people that I know understand that, have taken precautions. You know, especially to do with Bitcoin, it's obvious Bitcoin as an asset that they can park their money in, and it insulates themselves from kind of stuff like that. However, going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's no good having your wealth stored nicely if you can't spend it the way you want to spend it. And that is serious. And I think that is what's suddenly becoming serious now. The KYC, you know, all the stuff we were talking about, the online safety, it's real. It's really happening. It's real now. It's not people just talking about it anymore. You are now becoming criminalized in a very normal life. Not, you know, like I think many of my friends would class themselves as criminals, but they're only one step away from becoming a criminal because they require privacy. Which is
yes, well, and that's become a dirty word as well. It's bizarre how we all want privacy. You got blinds there for a reason, because you haven't got anything to hide, but people don't want people looking in when you're walking around when you just got out the shower. You know, the privacy is normal, but even that's being demonized because it's the mantra. Well, if you haven't got anything to hide, what's the problem? And that's the psyop. That's what people have been led to believe. And part of this system it is convincing people that they need, or like it's for the children. You know, it is just convincing people that all these horrific things that they're putting on us is normal and okay. And the things that you want, then you get treated like a pariah.
But what do you think the solution is then? I mean, beyond, don't just say Bitcoin.
Oh, of course, I was going to say that.
You can't say that. I want a realistic answer. That the truth is, like, for example, soon, like, if this is pretty obvious what's transpiring now. Soon, everything gets KYC'd. Everything. At that point, you're using a special type of money that is programmable and requires you to be obedient if you want to use it, basically, the long and short of it. And that's going to happen now, I'm pretty sure. The only way that doesn't happen is a complete collapse of the system, which
I think that is what could happen. That's actually what I was going to say, is that I think we need a reset.
You sound like Klaus Schwab now. Is it a great reset by any chance?
Well, do you know, it's funny because when they said that about how you will own nothing and be happy, I was wondering when I first heard that, how on earth are you going to do that? And then I looked at the way things were progressing. Everything's a subscription. We don't even own music anymore. Everything is about, you know, renting. People can't afford homes. And now I can actually see how that is going to play out.
I thought the home one is a big one for me because I've always been a homeowner. And what started occurring recently was that when houses become a liability because wealth is taxed, that's how they'll get you, even the people that own their houses. You know, because at the moment you could say you'll own nothing and be happy lot are looking, right, no one can afford a house except BlackRock or something.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah,
but the people that own houses are sitting there thinking, well, you know, I'm all right. I don't have a mortgage on my house, a lot of boomers. But actually, if they bring in some kind of wealth tax or even, then your house will then become a liability. And unless you fork up, say you own £1 million house, you might have to, if it goes up 25 grand 1 year and they say, right, we're going to tax that, or that's how people, even in that echelon of society, start saying, do you know what, I'm just going to rent because it's a lot less, it's not a liability. Renting is not a liability. I can, walk away. That was a bit of an eye-opener for me because I always thought that there was a defense mechanism against, do you know, and unfortunately, because the idea that you will own nothing and be happy seems quite sinister, but you can actually see it as a positive as well. And I'm definitely not channeling Schwab now.
No, I know.
You could basically live a quite successful life just renting things and not owning things, because it's the ownership of those things that is actually the liability for you.
I've come to that conclusion myself. Actually, that the less you are attached to, the happier you are.
I know, but isn't that Klaus Schwab winning? Do you see what I mean about
I do.
That? There's a lot of weirdness in the world at the moment.
Or it backfires and it just gives people the freedom that they need to move where they need to move to, and they're not shackled.
Well, yeah, well, like I say, which would be a phenomenal thing. I mean, geo-arbitrage and the ability to move, and if you own a house, it's much harder.
Yes.
The ability to move is very liberating.
Yeah.
Super liberating, because and in a way, it's necessary to have that in the world if you want governments to be more competitive.
Yes, because they should want to attract you. It shouldn't. I've always thought that the way it should be working is that a country should want to attract people, not try and keep them out.
Or keep them in.
Or keep them in and bring them in.
I mean, keeping them in is the big red flag. When they're stopping you from leaving.
No. Keep them in because you want to stay, not because you're going to get taxed on your overall wealth. Because it's a good place to be. That's how they should keep you. Not because you leave and then you get taxed. Because isn't that the case in the US?
What? Exit taxes?
Yeah.
Lots of countries have them. It's
But to
UK,
renounce your citizenship, you've actually got to pay that, haven't you?
that's the only way to not. No, are you talking about being taxed in the US, no matter where you live?
Yeah. So you have to
unless you renounce,
But then you get charged.
Well, what do you mean?
I thought I could be completely wrong. I thought that's when you also had to pay the exit tax if you renounce your...
Yes, that's what happened to Roger Ver, right? He went to Japan and he took all his Bitcoin with him and didn't pay anything. And now that's why I think that's basically what happened. But I mean, I would say that the reason why so many people are leaving the UK at the moment is because an exit tax will probably happen. And they're just getting out now. That would make a lot of sense to me, because I think...
Also, it's impossible to run a business there. They are crushing innovation.
Yeah.
So, high taxes, impossible to run a business. Of course you're going to leave. I don't think it's just the exit tax. I think it's actually what's happening now. They can see which way the wind's blowing, and it's impossible to be a innovator and be successful.
But what about yourself, though? Like you said you're tied, a bit like me, because you have kids. But is that forever? Do you have a particular connection to the UK that you never leave, or you want to stay and fight? Because there's definitely two groups. There's two types of people. There's the stay and fight, and the go and create something new and live in it somewhere else.
I want to stay and fight for the time being. While my kids are there, they are very attached to the UK, which really surprises me. I would move in a heartbeat. They love where they live, and they like it. I don't understand. I've always wondered, where would I go? What would I do? I mean, I moved to New York for a little while. I moved to New Zealand for a little while. For some reason, I always seem to come back. It just happens, not necessarily because I want to, but actually, my husband did actually say to me the other day, he said, so imagine you've got all the money that you need and you don't have to worry about anything. Where would you go? And I think that I would probably live on the road. I'd probably buy a boat. I'd probably just sail from one place to the next. I'd get an Airbnb in New York for a couple of months. And I don't think I'd have anywhere fixed. I would love to just live a life of adventure. And if money wasn't a concern, I'd just move around.
I've lived like that for a long time, and it's a great life. But it's I live the complete opposite life now. I live very settled in one place, and they're both as good as each other. There's no coming to the end of being a nomadic person was the best feeling ever.
Okay. And
I think coming to the end of this particular thing and going back to some form of moving around the world will probably be the best thing ever. I think they're both great in the end. The not having a home base and is great until you miss home after 3 years and you're like, I've got to move again. I'm going to a new place. I'm going to this, that and the other. But we've ended up coming back to the UK. We've been all over the world as well.
Why did you come back to the UK? So you were moving around, and then before you had your family, you decided to come back here and then settle? Kind
of. I moved around as a single guy. I was on the move for almost 10 years. Working, I was a filmmaker and a photographer, and all my work was around the world. So quite often I would end up just living in that country while we were doing something. And then, then I met my wife, and we were living in Germany, and she got pregnant and she wanted to move close to her mum. So that was an obvious move. I was in either way, the UK was a kind of nicer place back then. In the end, during the pandemic, when that hit, that was a big wake-up call for me. And we took off on the road, and we went to Mexico, El Salvador, before right around the time of the Bitcoin law and everything. No, well before that, actually. Or was it? Anyway, it was the state of emergency when we were in El Salvador, but we were in Mexico, US. We went to, from my side, I was just having a look round, because at that particular time, in the heart of the pandemic, people were starting to really talk about, hey, where are we going to live? Because my country is not what I thought it was.
Yeah. A lot of people
we ended up coming back again in the end, because my wife didn't want to be far from her family. If it had just been me, I'd be living in right now, I'd be living in Honduras. I'd be living in Prospero, which is one of the free city projects because it's just the cutting edge of governance at the moment, and I would have to be there. Because I would have to be part of it, or I would be doing the geo arbitrage somewhere like Argentina, living in Buenos Aires, But when you have a family, you can't. I mean, not only are you thinking about your partner, but you're thinking about your kids. And my kids are having the best childhood. I don't want to take that away from them, even though they would. I mean,
how old are they?
They are now 9, 11, and 13. And
really similar to mine, so 12 and 15.
Right, and they've lived abroad and they know what it's like to travel, and they will travel. My eldest is quite a home girl. She loves the British countryside. She loves riding horses. She wears green clothes. She's that kind of a person. My middle one is all over. Can't wait to get back out to Mexico. Doesn't really know why. She just knows she wants to go. Every time you see something on the TV, she's like, I want to go there. I want to go there. And my youngest son, he's not really making his mind up about anything these days yet. But I must admit, in the last, it's probably only a year and a half, I've been through a process of letting go of the UK, and it's been happening bit by bit inside me. And I noticed it first when we bought a new house in the last couple of years. We moved, and I knew this was the last one. I knew that we weren't going to get another one after this. And it was a doer-upper. And I couldn't wait to get started. And then slowly but surely, I'm like, I can't bother to do this house up. You know what I mean? And that's a big sign because, our last house, we did it up over 7 years. We completely transformed them. And I've just realized that there's no future. And it's slowly, I'm like, why would I pump all my hard-earned money into this house when I actually, A, don't think I'm going to stay here long term, and B, I don't even think it's going to hold its value either. I think houses are going to start to become a liability, either through taxes or just through the financial system realizing that parking your money in property is not, residential property is not a good idea because you don't get too much hassle, not a good return on your money, all that kind of stuff. And then you realize, especially if you're at my age, you realize you've got quite a lot of money stored in your house, but you're never going to be able to use it.
Because one house is one house, isn't it?
Exactly.
You then move from one house to another house.
Exactly. But we come from this culture where it was thought, do your house up, add an extension, do this. It's all good because it increases the price of your property.
Well, because the value of your money is going down. Yeah, no, exactly. But it's not. The thing is it's because we don't look at houses for their utility factor. We look at houses as an investment, and it's not that the value of your house is going up because your house has become more valuable. It's because the value of your money is decreasing.
And also because, And
the way that debt comes into the system and how easily that flows in, because a lot of people don't even understand how money comes into the system and how debt is created. So when you get the money for your mortgage, that wasn't sitting in Halifax's account ready to transfer to you. It gets created in that moment. I mean, you just got to look at the Bank of England. They've talked about debt creation and how it comes in.
I mean, on the positive note, I think concepts like quantitative easing and credit creation and all that kind of stuff, I think they are becoming kind of more commonly understood now.
Good.
I've noticed a few people in my life who, cousins, uncles, who really normally just say whatever the BBC says, starting to talk about things like inflation as not the rise in prices. The rise in prices is causing inflation, which I've heard so many times in the past. And it's like they're actually starting to realize that the increase in the money supply is inflation.
Yes.
And who does that? It's the government and the central banks. So are we the problem? Are greedy businessmen trying to put their prices up to try and take more money off you when they sell you it? Or are they just trying to compete and everything's so bloody expensive they have to put their prices up? And the reason they do is because someone in the government is just spending too much money. So the government pretend to be on your side, and then they create these problems, and then they create
more problems because they put rules in place that then exacerbate said problems, and they don't admit that they created the problem in the first place, but then they put in a solution to fix the problem, and it's a really ugly cycle.
I think it is. And so come on, back to my original question. What do you do about this completely effed up system that we're in,
But can I say you can't?
No, I that might be the conclusion I've come to. Not that I can't for the system. Like, I can make my own decisions about how I'm going to position myself, and that happens on a day-by-day basis at the moment. It's like there'll come a point. I hope it doesn't happen in the next 10 years, but there may come a point where I feel like I'm forced out of the UK. Not for any other reason that there are certain rules that I won't follow, because I disagree with them at the deepest part of my core,
Well, give me an example.
Well, the KYC thing, like I saw someone ranting the other day on Noster about how someone came to the door with a parcel, and it was something now that you have to be over 18 to receive. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they ordered something online and it was an over 18 thing only, and the guy came with the parcel and said, I need to see some ID. There's a kind of like 45-year-old person standing at the door. They say, I need to see some ID. And it's like, come on, bro, just give me the parcel. You don't need to see my ID.
And then take a photo.
I need to take a photo of it. Yeah. And in the end, he just caused a stink and sent the parcel away, because it's true. Yeah. It's like, hold on a minute. No, I'm not going to give you a bloody copy of my passport to receive a parcel. It's like, stop it. Stop all this stuff. But it's become normalised.
Yeah, people completely are doing it, and they're not even understanding the repercussions.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. So, come on. There's only so much you can stay and fight, because it's like walking through treacle.
Yeah.
You get more and more of these little jabs and digs, and that guy's just doing his job. He can't give you the parcel until the computer says yes, because he has to take the photo of your ID, and you're going no. So you end up not getting that thing,
Yeah.
Like, and the only long-term result is you move somewhere where they don't do that on your parcels. And that's kind of, which is why when you were talking about Bedford, I found the Bedford story quite interesting, because there's a very well-known Bitcoiner from Bedford, and he is doing something in Bedford, which arguably he's a stay and fight guy. He's trying to get involved in the political realm. He's doing his podcast now has turned into a mouthpiece for everyone that isn't mainstream politics, which is phenomenal, and it's great. And he's even employing a private, security force in the middle of Bedford, because the town's turned into such a shithole, And I think it's all phenomenal.
To be fair, it's been a shithole for a long time. I like having gone there for, decades, because my grandparents lived there. So for the first 30 years of my life, I was going there. It was like a second home to me. And like I said, they were second. I'm second generation. They were immigrants. They weren't rich. They lived in the poorer part of Bedford. So I would have seen all of that, and it's been like that for the whole of my life.
But did they have people walking into shops and just picking things up, filling out bags?
No, but that's not a Bedford thing.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But that's why they have a private security force. That's why Peter McCormack's paying for a private security force, in the middle of town. And was the middle of town full of people off their heads, drinking and being just generally disrupting?
No, that's not a Bedford thing either now.
No, I know. It's not a bit.
But that's because people are desperate. It's broken money. It's because the system isn't working for them. So although I understand that law enforcement is lacking, because now if you have your house broken into, they probably won't come. And likewise, if you suddenly had a heart attack or me, the ambulance won't be there in 5 minutes now. All the services that we took for granted, they're just not there. And I think all of this stuff is happening because people are desperate. So going back to my grandmother, my nonna, she came from a very small little village in Italy, in the south of Italy, just outside of Naples, called Campania. And it was a tiny little village, one road in, one road out. Everyone's related to each other. They all know each other. laws exist in Italy, obviously they do, but that's not what kept people in line. What kept people in line was the communities and the structure, the nonnas. You know, you wouldn't do anything wrong because you knew that there'd be somebody over there ready to tell you off and then tell your mum that what you're up to. So I think you can put all the laws that you like in place. You can put all the policing that you like in place. But unless you fix the fundamental problem of why people are so desperate, I don't think it's going to improve. I don't think putting more powers in place to stop this and stop that, because I don't think that's how society polices itself. I think that it's the breakdown of community that has actually led us to this. And until we rebuild communities, and that's another reason why I love Bitcoin, because it gives power back to the people. Currently, we're going through quite another depressing centralization of everything. Everything is being centralized, which means that people aren't making decisions over their local communities. The decisions are being made at a central level. And until we give that power back to people and actually empower them to have a stake in their environment, in their community, and in the people, then I just don't think it's going to fix itself. And as much as I understand why you would want to put an additional police force in place, it doesn't stop the underlying problem. And until we fix that root cause, I think we're pretty fucked.
I think in the case of centralised government, I think this is why a lot of people quite like the way, for example, Switzerland works, because I think it's 90% of all the money that a local council derives off its community, 90% goes to the central government to be sort of given back to them with stipulations. Whereas
they make their own choices, don't they? They very much, because I know.
But in Switzerland, I think it's like don't quote me on it, but I think 60% remains in the locality and only 40% goes to the central government. So when you pay your tax, it goes straight to your local government, which would make much more sense to me, 100%. I don't give a shit what happens in London. I would much rather my money goes to Herefordshire Council, because not that I think that they do good things with it, but sending it back to head office and then basically only getting stuff back because you pray really hard and do exactly what you're told is not a good thing, because London's a different place to where I live. I live in a very rural community. Yeah, of course. We need to empower people, and people need to feel like they have skin in the game. Yes, come on. I still need I want some concrete things that we can do. We have to be mindful that whenever you're kind of being forced into something, it's usually under the guise of convenience. So don't always take the easy route, and understand what it is that you're doing and why. Like we have our phones and we have apps, and it's so easy to download this and do this, and everything's been put in one place to make it easier for that. But sometimes you might actually have to put a bit more effort in and actually not take the convenient route. Have you ever wondered what could be a tipping point for mass adoption of these kind of ideas of, hold a minute, this is wrong? Because most people don't even think about this stuff. And especially in the UK, we've got that Britishness. Oh, well, muddle on, we'll just get through it. Yeah. But what could be a tipping point? Because I agree with you that you have to make, in your own personal life, you have to make all those little things. You have to say no to this. You have to not do that. You have to. But when it's only when there's only 10% of you doing it, which is it's exhausting. It's not only exhausting, but it doesn't really achieve anything. No, it's a personal. It's just your personal thing, and that's not to demean that, because I have made some decisions in the last 5 years which were very unpopular and proved right, and it made me a stronger person. Are you saying you didn't get the vaccine then? I'm not saying anything about the vaccine, because I really respect all the people that held out. I got it. I regret it. Deeply regret it. And the reason why I got it is because I'd been homeschooling 2 very young children, and I was trying to work at the same time.
and it broke me. I mean, the amount of health problems that I got during that time just due to the stress. And I feel ashamed even saying it now, but I was so utterly broken by that time. I just wanted to go on holiday, and I wanted something to be easy, and I didn't want it to be hard, and I just wanted to go away and not have all that shit.
It's the same story from a lot of people that I know. Like I say, though, if there's any consolation, and it's not just about not necessarily the vaccination, whether you chose to do that or not, but any decision you make, which is hard, after you've made it, it makes you a stronger person. And the more people that probably disagree with you when it's something you really believe in my experience, it really does mean a lot on a personal level. It may not necessarily make much difference in the real world, but it will make a lot of difference to you, and it will probably make a lot of difference to your kids when they see you doing things like that. But it's even so, like I say, that kind of stuff still doesn't offer me much hope on a grand scale, you know.
Do you know,
I'm looking for a result. I want everyone, you know, like I even would just be happy with the way things were when I was a kid. You know, I know that we can't go back to that, and I know that the internet is the reason why authoritarianism is so emboldened now, but it's also the reason why we have all these other tools that on the opposite side of the fence. But I would just like to see a really, you know, not such a tiresome experience in life where everyone is doing a lot of people doing a lot of illogical things, like the guy who's there trying to get a 45-year-old person to show them his ID, not because he doesn't believe you're 45, but because the computer says, I've got to do it. You know, but you know, when you talk to people who grew up in communist societies, they'll tell you all the same kind of ridiculous stories.
Yeah,
and you listen to those and you think, yeah, but that could never happen here.
Yes, that's
it's happening here.
I know it is. Yeah,
it's happening here. They're about to. I saw this on your timeline. The Labour government is talking about banning VPNs. VPNs just give you privacy on the internet. They're talking about banning them. Yeah. And they're not talking about banning them because you're a criminal. They're saying it's because your kids need to be protected from porn or something. It's ridiculous. I think
they need to be protected from addictive technology.
Whatever.
Don't give them the phone.
Well, exactly. But even that, the phone is, they don't, it doesn't matter. Like, none of this stuff matters. You're using the excuse of that. You know, you're using the excuse of safety of your children for something to ban something which is nothing to do with that.
Yeah, it's illogical, like you say. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you're the government, because VPNs do stop people being able to snoop on you.
They'll find another way.
Exactly.
There'll always be a workaround. Always.
Yes, there will. But the point is that yesterday you weren't a criminal.
No.
Tomorrow you might actually be a criminal, and all you're doing is just saying to someone in the government office, "No, you can't see what I'm looking at on the internet. It's none of your business." That's all it is. You know, like, or no, I don't want you to have my banking details freely, because you lose them.
Not just lose them. There's actual real life examples where data has, because it's a central honeypot for hackers. We know that their systems are weak and that they won't look after our data, and it actually has real life consequences. So there's going to come a point where an exchange, Coinbase gets hacked, you know, and someone can see how much Bitcoin that you've bought, and it's attached to your address. That can cause physical harm. That's not just it's a data breach. Oh, that's unlucky. Oh, my data's out there. Oh, it actually transpires into the real world and physical harm. And I just don't think they understand that. And so they want everything from you, and they won't protect you. They just won't, and they're not. And that's what's so bad. And you've said the word hope a couple of times. that is what Bitcoin gives you. You want an answer outside of Bitcoin. I can't give you that. Bitcoin is the only thing that gives me hope. If it wasn't for Bitcoin, I honestly do not know what I would do.
Well, I know what you mean. I mean, but Bitcoin is, when I look at the sort of macro landscape, it's a very long-term strategy. I think it's inevitable that it will reorganize the landscape of society in the end.
Yeah.
And for the good. And one of the main things that it'll do is it will defund governments, which is phenomenal. And you could argue it's just come at the perfect moment because they're at their height. So something did need to be discovered that might do that. But it could be a 250-year plan. I don't know. I've got no idea. Because really, when you think about it, like we were saying earlier, one of the worst things about the modern world is that it's all very well, you might have some Bitcoin, but unless you can spend it in the real world, it's not much use. And almost certainly that is one of the capture routes, one of the ways that people who don't like Bitcoin would use to, and it's already happening. We can see it. We can see it. You can't really buy a car with Bitcoin, like you said.
No,
it's not possible.
Or else, yeah.
I mean, you can.
Well,
you can buy it.
You've got to jump through quite a few hoops.
Yes, but if you want any kind of financial privacy, you can't.
Yes,
you
exactly.
will be able to. I think you will be able to. So the technology to make your transaction private kind of already exists and will definitely in the future. The problem is you still might not be able to buy that house because the system that you're living in might insist that they need to know. Like, I've just bought a house, and fortunately I was just swapping one house for another. But the guys that were buying our house were using lots of money from different sources, and I was chatting to him. It's unbelievable. Their grandparents were giving them some money for, in order just to help them out. And they were asking them to say where that money came from and track back. And, they had like all these, it was absolutely ridiculous.
But a lot of people do justify that, of course, because you have to stop money laundering, but they don't stop money laundering. This is the problem. Most money laundering happens through HSBC, JP Morgan. They're not stopping it. All they're doing is making normal people jump through these hoops. Normal, law-abiding people. It stops nothing. It doesn't change anything. They're going after the wrong stuff.
Well, I mean, I think probably it does stop a little bit. Like, for example, it's
There'll
quite...
be workarounds.
Yeah, I know there are. But what I mean is the way the government thinks, or the way that the people that want to police that think, is without these checks and balances, it's much harder to buy property to launder money, which is true. But but I don't think it warrants it, because I think you're basically, it's a minute number of people that you're actually penalising the whole of the country for, or anyone who wants to buy a house. I agree with that. But
so you've obviously heard of the fourth turning.
Yes.
So what, we're going from weak men into hard times. Is there a solution? No, this is cyclical. It's pre-planned. We're going to head into choppy waters, potentially war. I think that it could lead to collapse, and I think it's all predictable.
All right, go back to my original question. So what do you do in this fourth turning? Like, what have people done in previous fourth turnings?
Had a very, very difficult and miserable time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. We're normally quite positive on this.
And then you come out the other end. Then there's an end to it. So it will be probably a 20-year period of difficulty. Lessons will be learned. It will be really, really difficult. And then you go from hard times with hard men, and then hard men lead to good times. So it's a cycle. I think, is that correct? Have I got that right?
Even if it's not correct, everyone knows what you mean.
Yeah,
we all know the cycle. I'm like you. I can't necessarily pull it out of thin air every time and say all the right words.
I remember concepts and I can't remember anything verbatim. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm not academic like that. I have to write a lot of things down, but
Me too. That's
I
what
get the general gist.
We've both got our notebooks full of just like words. Yeah.
Mine and doodles. Anyway, look, we should probably wrap it up here. I do want to leave on a positive note, though. I want people listening to this to go away thinking, do you know what? Yes, it's all shit. And yes, we're going through hard times, or we will. But it doesn't matter, actually, because I've got this solution that I'm doing the best I can to insulate myself and my family and loved ones from this, putting myself in the best position I can. What would that be for you? You're someone who's probably quite representative of a lot of people. You live in a country where you're tied to for many reasons, and also that country is functioning in a way that you don't like. So how are you weathering the storm?
I focus my energy on the hope aspect. That is why I obsess over Bitcoin. Bitcoin is hope. It really is. So my suggestion would be study it, learn it, understand it, and see why it's going to change the world. Because the most amazing thing is I actually feel really privileged to be living in this time. I can't believe that Bitcoin has actually come at this time, at a time that I'm alive, to actually help, further that cause. And it's a little bit like planting a seed or an acorn, and you'll never see that oak grow. I don't think that I'll see the fruits of my labour, but I do know that I'm planting that seed, and I believe that it will lead to a much brighter, better future.
Study Bitcoin, then.
Exactly.
That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think I would say study Bitcoin. I would also, but once again, I always come back to that point. It's like, right, I've studied it, I understand it, it's all good, but in the meantime, how do I deal with Keir Starmer being a douchebag?
You don't have to. Do you know what you do? You do what you're doing. You build something. You have a podcast. You educate people. You teach people stuff. You give people food for thought. You give them extra homework or something to go away. You're doing it. You're doing it. I'm doing it through my writing. We're all doing it in our own little way. We're spreading a hopeful message. We're saying there is a lifeboat. And you can jump on that lifeboat. Study Bitcoin.
Cool. All right. Lifeboats away. Susie, thank you for taking the time to come into my my commie chic apartment.
I love it, yeah.
Well, inside it's not too bad, but you see it from the outside. You have to come in a little alleyway at the side into the grottiest little staircase.
Yeah, but there's something gritty and lovely about it, though. I loved it.
When I lived in Berlin, we used to live in a former KGB listening building. No, it was amazing. Was
there an energy to it, though? Was it?
It was amazing. I liked it. It was right in Prenzlauer Berg. It was right in the middle of all the good stuff where everything was going on. It was a crazy place, but it had been completely renovated, so it didn't feel like that at all. But all the buildings were like this, these giant blocks of a... before real 60s brutalism destroyed architecture, you had this kind of stuff, which is like the walls are... they're all massive. All the rooms are massive, yeah. But anyway, thanks for coming to visit, and
thank you for having me.
Good luck on your journey, and it was good talking to you. Thanks.
Thank you.